Hello, my name is David Mao, and I have the honor of serving as the Law Librarian of Congress. I'm standing in the Great Hall of the Thomas Jefferson Building of the Library of Congress, only steps away from a corner of the library once called the Shrine. Between 1924 and 1952, with only a short break during World War II, the Shrine was where the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution were kept and displayed together for the American people. The Shrine was also once the site of another display. 75 years ago, in 1939, Lincoln Cathedral and the British people entrusted the Library of Congress to safeguard Lincoln Cathedral's magnificent 1215 manuscript of King John's Magna Carta. For 2 years, the library displayed this Magna Carta in the Shrine alongside our American Charters of Liberty. Magna Carta is the Charter of Liberties that England's King John granted to his barons in 1215. Since then, Magna Carta has become one of the most enduring symbols of liberty and the rule of law. The library will commemorate the 800th anniversary of the granting of Magna Carta and the 75th anniversary of the Lincoln Magna Carta's visit to the library with an exhibition entitled Magna Carta, Muse and Mentor. At the heart of the exhibition will be the Lincoln King John 1215 Magna Carta. To raise awareness about Magna Carta's enduring legacy and to complement the library's on-site exhibition, the American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Law Library of Congress joined with the Law Library of Congress to develop the traveling exhibit before you. These banners show images of objects from the Library of Congress collections that illustrate Magna Carta's influence throughout the centuries and explain the document's long history. Our hope is that people across the United States will get a glimpse of the library's fabulous collections and, more importantly, hear the story of Magna Carta and its role in promoting the rule of law. To bring life to the objects depicted on the panels, I'm joined by exhibition curator Nathan Dorn, who will explain some of the items in detail.
Thank you, David. Hello, I am Nathan Dorn, the curator of rare books at the Law Library of Congress. I had the pleasure to curate both the Library of Congress on-site exhibition of physical objects, Magna Carta, Muse and Mentor, and the American Bar Association's traveling facsimile exhibition, Magna Carta's Enduring Legacy, 1215 to 2015. We are standing in the ceremonial office of the Librarian of Congress, Dr. James H. Billington, where I have prepared a display of 5 collection items that appear in both exhibitions. The first item I would like to share with you is one of the Law Library of Congress's most treasured books. It's a bound medieval manuscript on vellum of the Statutes of England created in the 14th century. As you can see, it's very small, measuring about 4 inches tall and 2 3/4 inches wide. It's still in its original pigskin wrapper. The first statute listed in the collection is Magna Carta. Here you can see an illuminated E for King Edward I, who reigned from 1272 to 1307. This version of Magna Carta is the one that King Edward I reissued in 1297. Here you can see the famous Chapter 29 of Magna Carta, that is equivalent to Chapter 39 in King John's 1215 Magna Carta. Chapter 29 contains some of the most famous words in the Charter. It states that no free man is to be taken or imprisoned or disseized of his free tenement, that's to say deprived of his property, or of his liberties, or free customs, or outlawed or exiled, or in any way ruined, nor will we go against such a man or send against him, except by the lawful judgment of his peers, or by the law of the land. This item is another bound medieval manuscript on vellum that contains the statutes of King Edward III, who reigned from 1327 to 1377, and Richard II, who reigned from 1377 to 1400. What I'd like to show you in this book is a statute from the 28th year of the reign of King Edward III. That's 1354. This statute repeats the guarantees laid out in Chapter 29 with some slight but important differences. Instead of protecting only free men, which meant landowners of a particular level of wealth and townspeople, this statute protects men of any estate whatsoever. That's a considerable expansion of Magna Carta's guarantees. Another change is that instead of guaranteeing people various protections according to the law of the land, this statute substitutes the phrase due process of law. In fact, this statute is the very first instance of the phrase due process of law in our legal literature. Chapter 29 of Magna Carta received its classic exposition at the hands of the celebrated jurist Sir Edward Coke in his second part of the Institutes of the Laws of England. This item is the 6th edition of that work, printed in London in 1681. At the heart of Cook's interpretation of Magna Carta is the idea that the Great Charter was fundamental law, a law that no king can ever repeal. This work was one of the basic textbooks from which young lawyers on both sides of the Atlantic learned the law in the 17th and 18th centuries. To take one American lawyer, for example, we have here Thomas Jefferson's copy of Cook's Institutes. If you open it to folio I, you can see where Jefferson initialed the bottom right hand of the page. Historians usually point out that Cook's take on Magna Carta and its significance was not historically accurate. But Cook's understanding of what Magna Carta could mean for the defense of individual liberties began a myth of Magna Carta that was in many ways more important than the historical reality. His interpretation was especially important, as we will see, in the colonies of British America. Sir Edward Cook's interpretation of Magna Carta crossed the Atlantic quite early. In 1641, a Massachusetts man named Nathaniel Ward, who was trained both as a barrister and as a minister before he came to America, compiled a document known as the Body of Liberties. The Body of Liberties was a kind of legal manifesto that over time served as the basis for the laws and liberties of Massachusetts, which was enacted in 1648 as Massachusetts Code of Civil and Criminal Law. Here we have a 1672 copy of the Laws and Liberties of Massachusetts printed by Samuel Green in Cambridge, Massachusetts. In both the Body of Liberties and the Laws and Liberties of Massachusetts, you will find that the first provision of the document, the first of the liberties listed, is a paraphrase of Chapter 29 of Magna Carta. If you look here at the handwritten note in the right-hand margin, you can see that this fact did not escape the notice of an early reader of this copy of the book. This item is a first edition copy of the Federalist, also known as the Federalist Papers. It was written, for the most part, as a series of newspaper editorials by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay during the debate that led to the ratification of the United States Constitution. Their purpose was to defend the federal Constitution from its critics. What makes this particular copy interesting is that it was owned by Alexander Hamilton's wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Hamilton later gave it to her sister, Angelica Church, from whom her friend, Thomas Jefferson, acquired it, despite the fact that Jefferson was one of Hamilton's greatest political opponents. The copy became a part of the Library of Congress collection in 1815, when the library purchased Thomas Jefferson's private library. The essays in the Federalist were written under the pseudonym Publius, and identifying the individual authors has aroused controversy. Apparently relying on information supplied by Madison, Jefferson assigned authorship to each of the essays in a list on the flyleaf of this volume. If you find yourself in Washington, D.C. between November 6, 2014 and January 19, 2015, please visit us at the Library of Congress to see the Lincoln 1215 King John Magna Carta in person, where it will be the centerpiece of Magna Carta, Muse, and Mentor, an exhibition that celebrates 800 years of Magna Carta's influence on the rule of law. If you can't make it to Washington, the exhibition will be available online after January 19, 2015. From all of us at the Library of Congress, I would like to thank you for spending a few minutes with us, and I encourage you to continue your tour of Magna Carta's enduring legacy, 1215 to 2015.